first point I really just want to make is that climate change is very much a global issue. It has global effects and really needs to be dealt with at a global level. For many years now, we've had an international process through the United Nations to try to deal with climate change. That process has been done through the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, where all governments around the world came together to agree to take action on climate change. But it was through further negotiation that we had further agreements like a famous agreement called the Kyoto Protocol, which is an international agreement that sets targets and sets measures to actually deal with climate change. Within these international legal frameworks, the key ways that are laid out to deal with the problem of climate change are: one, reducing emissions through targets, so setting targets on countries to reduce their emissions, through having domestic measures in countries and through other governments helping to fund those measures in developing countries, through transferring technology, and this is a big issue that continues to be debated. If the world's developed countries have a lot of technology that can solve the problem, then that technology should be transferred to developing countries, and that's an issue that will continue to be discussed in the negotiations going forward. And also the use of market mechanisms. So what's the best mechanisms that we can put in place on the private sector who are actually causing the emissions to cause them to reduce those emissions? And the key tool that has been adopted within these international frameworks is in fact emissions trading. And within that framework, a small part of that which engages the developed countries with the developing countries is what's called the Clean Development Mechanism. And I'll come back to that in a moment. The other two measures are through adopting measures that relate to mitigation. We accept that there are already impacts of climate change that can't be avoided, so what are the measures in those international agreements to mitigate climate change impacts? And then finally, adaptation. How do we adapt to climate change, particularly as we know there are many areas where there are unavoidable consequences which will occur because of the emissions we've already put into the atmosphere.